Production by Liang Gu, The Biography of Beethoven. Strive to do good, love freedom above all else. Even for the sake of the throne, never deceive the truth. Beethoven, 1792 Manual. He is short and fat, with a strong appearance and the bones of an athlete. He had a broad, earthy red face, but his skin turned sickly and yellow in his later years, especially in winter, when he was shut indoors and away from the fields. His mouth and forehead corners bulged and became extremely wide. Black hair, unusually thick. It's as if the comb has never been on it, standing upside down everywhere, like the snakes on Midas' head. There was a strange power burning in his eyes that shocked everyone who saw him, but most people couldn't tell the subtle difference between them. Because on the brown and tragic face, these eyes project a wild light, so everyone always thinks they are black. In fact, they are gray-blue. They are usually small and deep, but when they are excited or angry, they open wide and spin in the eye sockets. That wonderfully reflects their true thoughts. He often gazes toward the sky with melancholy eyes. The broad nose is short and square, giving it the appearance of a lion. A delicate mouth, but the lower lip often tends to protrude forward than the upper lip. The gums are so strong that they can crack walnuts. There was a deep dimple on the left side of his chin, which gave his face an odd asymmetry. According to Mosiers, his smile was beautiful. There was an air between conversations that was often endearing and cheerful. But on the other hand, his laughter was unpleasant, crude, ugly, and short-lived, the laughter of a man unaccustomed to joy. His usual expression was melancholy, showing an incurable sadness. In 1825, Restable said that it took all his strength to hold back his tears when he saw his tender eyes and their violent anguish. 1 year later, Brahman Bronte met him in a hotel, sitting in a corner smoking a long pipe with his eyes closed, which was a habit that he increased day by day before his death. A friend spoke to him. He smiled sadly. He took out a small conversation manual from his bag, and then in the sharp voice that deaf people are accustomed to, he taught people to write down what they wanted to say. His expression changes from time to time, or when someone accidentally bumps into him on the piano. Or when I suddenly feel something, sometimes even on the street, surprising passers-by. The muscles on the face suddenly bulge, the blood vessels swell, the wild eyes become doubly terrifying, the mouth trembles. It is as if a magician summoned a demon and was subdued by the demon. That is a Shakespearean look. Julius Penedite said that he is no different from King Lear. Ludwig van Beethoven. Born on December 16, 1770 in Bonn, near Cologne, in the attic of a dilapidated house. His origin is Flemish. The father was an unintelligent and alcoholic tenor singer. The mother is a maid, the daughter of a cook. She first married a valet, but after her husband died, she remarried Beethoven's father. He had a difficult childhood and did not enjoy the warmth of family like Mozart. From the beginning, life seemed to him a tragic and brutal struggle. His father wanted to develop his musical talent, show him off like a prodigy. When he was 4 years old, he was nailed in front of the dulcimer all day long, or was shut up at home with a violin, and was almost crushed to death by the heavy work. It was his good fortune that he did not hate this art forever. His father had to use violence to force Beethoven to study. As a boy, he had to worry about financial problems and how to earn his daily bread. That was a heavy task that came too early. At the age of 11, he joined the theater band. At the age of 13, he became the organist. In 1787, he lost his beloved mother. "She is so kind to me, so worthy of love, my best friend. Oh, who is happier than I when I can call my mother's sweet name and she hears it?" She died of consumption. Beethoven thought he was suffering from the same disease. He was already suffering from frequent pains, plus a melancholy that was even more cruel than the disease. At the age of 17, he became the head of the family and was responsible for the education of his 2 brothers. He had to shamefully ask his father to retire because he was an alcoholic and could not run the family. They were afraid that he would waste his money and give his pension to his son. These sad facts left deep scars on his heart. He found a close support in a family in Bonn, the Brownings, whom he cherished throughout his life. The lovely Leonore de Browning was 2 years younger than him. He taught her music and led her on the path of poetry. She had been his childhood companion. Perhaps there had been considerable tenderness between them. Later, Eleanor married Dr. Weigel, who also became one of Beethoven's confidants. Until the end, they maintained a quiet friendship. This can be seen from the letters written by Weigel, Eleanor, and Beethoven to each other. When the 3 people reach old age, their love is particularly touching, but their hearts are still as young as before. Beethoven's childhood was tragic nonetheless. He always retains a tender and desolate memory of this era and the place where he spent it. He had to leave Pengen and lived in the frivolous capital of Vienna and its bleak suburbs almost all his life. But he never forgot his hometown on the Rhine, the majestic fatherly river, as he called our Father Rhine. Indeed, it was so vivid, almost human, like a huge soul. Countless thoughts and forces flowed through it, and there is no place in the Rhine Valley more beautiful, more majestic, and more gentle than the delicate fen, with its dense shade, flower-covered slopes, and the gentle flow of the river. The impact and caress. Here. Beethoven spent his first 20 years. Here, the dreamland in his young heart was formed, on the grassland caressing the water lazily, the white poplars shrouded in mist, dense bushes, thin willows, and fruit trees, immersing their roots in the still and rapid water. There are also villages, churches, and cemeteries, lazily looking down at the 2 sides of the strait with curious eyes. In the distance, The blue seven peaks draw a stern silhouette in the sky, with the ruined castle standing above it, showing the out of some thin and eccentric silhouettes. His heart was always loyal to this hometown. Until the end of his life, he always wanted to see his hometown again but could not do so. My hometown, the beautiful place where I was born, is always so beautiful and bright before my eyes. It's no different than when I left it. The Great Revolution broke out, spread across Europe, and occupied Beethoven's heart. The University of Bonn was the center of new ideas. On May 14, 1789, Beethoven enrolled. Listen to German literature spoken by the famous Oleg Scheinert, the future prosecutor of Lower Rhine. When Bonn learned of the fall of Basti prison, Scheinert recited an impassioned poem from the pulpit. It aroused the enthusiasm of the students. The following year, he published a collection of revolutionary poems. In the list of reservation holders, we can see the names of Beethoven and Browning. In November 1792, just as the war spread to Bonn, Beethoven left his hometown and lived in Vienna, the musical capital of Germany. On the way he met the Hessian army heading towards France. Undoubtedly, he was inspired by patriotic sentiments between 1796 and 1972. He set Fleetberg's war poems into music. One is March Song, the other is We Are the Great German Nation. But it was in vain that he eulogized the enemies of the revolution. The revolution had conquered the world and conquered Beethoven. From 1798 onwards, although the relationship between Austria and France was very tense, Beethoven still had close contacts with the French, with the embassy, and with Penatoda, who had just arrived in Vienna. In those conversations, his pro-republican sentiments became increasingly clear. In his later life, we can see the powerful development of this emotion. The portrait that Steinhaus painted for him during this period shows his appearance quite accurately at that time. This portrait represents Beethoven's subsequent portraits. Gilling's portrait of Napoleon is no different from other portraits of Napoleon. The stern face vividly reflects the flame of Bonaparte's ambition. Beethoven looks very young in the painting, not even his age, thin and straight. The high collar made his head and neck stiff, and he had a look of disdain and nervousness. He knows where his will lies. He believes in his own power. In 1796, he wrote in his notebook, "Brave. Although my body is not good, my genius will prevail in the end." 25 years old. Hasn't it already arrived? In this very year, the whole man should be revealed. Mrs. Painhart and Glink described him as arrogant, rough in manner, depressed in attitude, and with a very strong mainland accent. But the compassion he hid beneath this proud clumsiness was known only to a few close friends. When he wrote to Weigel describing his success, his first thought was, "Suppose I see a friend in trouble. If my purse is not enough to help him, I just sit in front of the desk and solve his problem in an instant. He sees how wonderful this is." Then he added, my art should benefit poor people. However, pain is already knocking on the door. Once it abides in him, it never retreats. Between 1796 and 1800, deafness began its torture. His ears were ringing day and night. His internal organs were also tortured by severe pain. Hearing is getting worse. For several years he hid it from no one, not even to his most beloved friends. He avoided meeting people so that no one would notice his disability. He kept this terrible secret to himself. But by 1801, he could no longer remain silent. In despair he told two friends, Dr. Weigel and Pastor Amanda, "My dear, my kind, my sincere Amanda, I wish you could always be by my side. Your Beethoven is so pitiful. I must know that the noblest part of me, my hearing, has greatly diminished. When we were together, I already felt many symptoms of illness, which I hid, but from then on it became worse and worse. Will it ever be cured? Of course I hope so, but very little. There is no cure for this type of disease. I must live a miserable life, avoiding all the characters I love, especially in a world so pitiful and selfish. I have to find shelter in the forbearance of sadness. Although I have vowed to transcend these disasters, how is it possible?" He wrote to Weigel. "I lead a miserable life. For 2 years I avoided all society because it was impossible for me to speak. I was deaf. If I had another career, maybe it would be okay, but in my line of work, this is a terrible experience. What will my enemies say, for they are so numerous? In the theater, I had to sit close to the orchestra. Only then can you understand what the actors are saying. I can't hear the high notes of instruments and singing if I sit a little further away. When people spoke softly, I could barely hear a little, and when people shouted loudly, I was in unbearable pain. I often cursed my life." Plutarch taught me patience. I am willing to challenge my fate, as long as possible, but sometimes, I am the most pitiful creature of God, bear with me. What a sad refuge. But this is my only way out. This kind of tragic sorrow. It was reflected in some of the works of that time, such as the Pathetic Sonata, 1799, in Volume 13 of the Complete Works, especially Volume 10 of the Complete Works, 1798. Largo in the Third Sonata. What is strange is that not all the works have a melancholic mood, and there are many pieces of music, such as the joyful Septet, 1800. The First Symphony, 1800, as clear as water, reflects a kind of innocence of young people. No doubt it takes some time to accustom the soul to sorrow. It needs joy so much. Create it yourself when it actually has no joy. It lives in the past, when the now is too cruel. The wonderful days of the past cannot be wiped out at once. When they cease to exist, their light will continue to shine for a long time. When he suffered alone in Vienna, Beethoven retreated into the memories of his hometown. His thoughts at that time were imprinted with this trace. The theme of Andante, which appears as a variation in the septet, is a Rhenish ballad. The First Symphony is also a work that celebrates Rhine. It is a poem about young people smiling at their dreams. It is happy and lazy, it has the desire and hope to please others. But in some paragraphs, in the introduction, in the contrast of light and dark of the bass instrument, in the sacred scherzo, we are so moved to see the gaze of future genius on the face of youth. Those are the eyes of a baby painted by Botticelli in The Holy Family. There is already a glimpse of his future tragedy. On top of these physical pains is added another kind of pain. Wiegeler said he had never seen Beethoven without a fierce passion. These loves always seem to be very pure. There is no connection between passion and pleasure. Modern people confuse the two. In fact, they don't know what passion is, nor do they know how rare it is. There was something Puritan about Beethoven's soul. He is disgusted by rough talk and thoughts, and he has no pretense about the sanctity of love. It is said that he could not forgive Mozart because he did not hesitate to humiliate his own genius to write Don Juan. His close friend Schindler said, he maintained his virginity all his life and never had any evil deeds to repent of. Such a person is born to be deceived by love and become a victim of love. He does. He fell in love endlessly, turning him upside down like a madman. He constantly dreams of happiness, but is immediately disillusioned, followed by misery. Beethoven's fullest inspiration should be explored in this cycle of sometimes loving and sometimes proudly resisting until he reaches a certain age. His passionate character became calm in his sad forbearance. In 1801, the object of his passion was Kyrietta Shishardi. He is world famous for the famous Moonlight Sundance, 1802, volume 27-2 of the complete works, which he inscribed to him. He wrote to Weigel, "Now my life is sweeter and I have more contacts with other people." This change was brought about by the charm of a dear girl. She loved me, and I loved her. This was my first lucky day in 2 years. But he paid a high price for this. First, this love made him feel particularly disabled. The difficulty of his circumstances prevented him from marrying the one he loved. Secondly, Mrs. Curie was coquettish, childish, and selfish, which troubled Beethoven. In November 1803, she married Count Galenborg. Such enthusiasm is soul-destroying. And like Beethoven, when the soul has become weak due to illness, frantic emotions are in danger of completely destroying it. It was only this time in his life that he seemed to have reached a breaking point, and he was going through a period of despair and depression. You only need to read the will he wrote to his brothers Carl and John at that time to know that it stated, "To be opened after my death." This is a cry of extreme pain, but also a cry of resistance. We couldn't help but be filled with compassion as we listened. He was almost at the end of his life. It was only his strong moral sentiments that kept him in check. His last hope of recovery was gone. Even the great courage that always sustained me is gone. Oh God! Give me one day of true joy, just one day. How long has it been since I heard the profound sound of joy? When, oh my God, when will I meet it again? Never? No. No, this is too cruel. This was a dying cry, but Beethoven lived for 25 years. His strong-willed nature cannot give in when faced with hardships. My physical strength and mental strength have improved by leaps and bounds. My youth, yes, I feel that my youth has only just begun. I glimpse a goal of which I cannot be certain, and every day I draw nearer to it. Oh! If I get rid of this disease, I will embrace the world. No rest at all. I know no rest but sleep. And unfortunately, I have to spend more time on sleep than before. If only I could be half free from my illness, then. No, I can't stand it. I want to grab fate by the throat. It will never bring me to complete surrender. Oh! How beautiful it is to be able to live a person 1,000 times. This love, this pain, this will, this transition from depression to pride, these inner tragedies are all reflected in the great work of 1802, Sonata with Funeral Music, Complete Works, Volume 26. Fantasy Sonata, Complete Works, Volume 27, Part 2, commonly known as Moonlight Song, Sonata, Complete Works, Volume 31, Part 2, the dramatic recital, and it seems like a great and sad performance. A sad monologue. The Violin Sonata dedicated to Emperor Alexander, Complete Works, Volume 30, the Sonata of Cecilia, Complete Works, Volume 47, 6 tragic and tragic religious songs based on the words of Galanti Song, Complete Works Volume 48. As for the Second Symphony of 1803, it reflects his youthful love. It was obviously his will that prevailed. An irresistible force swept away melancholy thoughts. The boiling of life sets off the ending of the music. Beethoven longed for happiness. He refused to believe in his irremediable disaster. He longed for recovery, longed for love, and he was full of hope. In several of these works, the marching and fighting rhythms are particularly strong. This is already obvious in the Allegro and finale of the Second Symphony, but especially the first chapter of Sonata dedicated to Emperor Alexander is even more heroic and heroic. The unique fighting nature of this music, reminiscent of the era in which it was produced. The revolution had arrived in Vienna. Beethoven was incited by it. The Knight Severit said, he discussed the political situation happily among his close friends and judged with great wisdom. The eyes are sharp and clear. All his sympathies were with the revolutionaries. Schindler, who knew him best late in his life, said, "He loved Republican principles. He stood for unrestricted liberty and national independence. He longed for everyone to work together to establish the country's government, longed for universal suffrage in France, and hoped that Bonaparte would establish this system and lay the foundation for human happiness. He is like a revolutionary ancient Roman." Influenced by Plutarch, he dreamed of a heroic republic established by the god of victory, and the so-called god of victory was the chief consul of France, so he wrote Heroic Symphony, Bonaparte, one after another, 1804. The Epic of Empire, and the finale of the Fifth Symphony, 1805 to 2008, the Glorious Ballad. The first truly revolutionary soul of the music era was resurrected in it, so strong and so pure. Because the huge changes in the contemporary era appear strong and pure in the hearts of lonely giants, this impression will not be diminished even if it comes into contact with reality. Beethoven's face seems to be reflected by these historical wars. Their traces can be found everywhere in the works of that time. Perhaps the author himself was not aware that there was a violent storm howling in the Korea Orang Overture, 1807, and the Fourth Quartet, Complete Works, Volume Chapter 1 of 18. It is very similar to the above-mentioned overture, Sonata Passionate, Complete Works, Volume 57 to 1804. Bismarck once said, "If I hear it often, my courage will never be exhausted." Also, there is Egmont and even Piano Ensemble in E-flat. Complete Works Volume 73 to 1809. The parts showing off skills are all heroic, as if a man and a horse are galloping. And this is not surprising. When Beethoven was writing the Hero's Funeral, in Volume 26 of the Complete Works, the hero he eulogized more than the protagonist of the heroic symphony, General Osch, was dying on the banks of the Rhine. His memorial statue still stands on the hill between Koblenz and Bonn. Even at that time Beethoven never knew about this. But he had also witnessed two revolutionary triumphs in Vienna. In November 1805, when Fidelio was first performed, the French military commander was present. General Uhlung, the victor of the Bastille prison, lived in the house of Lobkowitz. As Beethoven's friend and protector, he was inscribed with his Eroica Symphony and Fifth Symphony. On May 10, 1809, Napoleon was stationed in Schönbrunn. Beethoven soon became disgusted with the French conquistadors. But he still clearly felt the epic enthusiasm of the French, so anyone who does not feel like him will never fully understand his music of action and victory. Beethoven suddenly stopped working on his Fifth Symphony and wrote the Fourth Symphony in one breath without going through the usual drafting procedures. Happiness appeared before his eyes. May 1806. He was engaged to Daines de Brunswick. She had fallen in love with him a long time ago. From the early days when Beethoven lived in Vienna, she became friends with her brother Count François. When she was still a little girl, she studied piano with Beethoven. Just love him. In 1806, he was a guest at their home in Madenveza, Hungary, where they fell in love. The memory of these happy days still survives in part of the narrative of Danlands de Brunswick. She said, one Sunday night, after dinner, Beethoven sat in front of the piano under the moonlight. First he flattened his fingers and stroked them back and forth on the keyboard. Francois and I both knew this habit of his. This is how it usually starts. Then he played a few chords in the bass part, then, slowly, with a mysterious and solemn air, he played a song by Sebastien. If you wish to give me a gift from your heart, it doesn't matter. Pass it on quietly. The love between the two is intimate, so no one knows about it. My mother and the priest had gone to bed. My brother stared solemnly. My heart was penetrated by his songs and eyes, and I felt the fullness of life. Tomorrow morning, we will meet in the garden. He said to me, I'm writing an opera. The main person is in my heart, in front of me, and wherever I go or stay, he is always with me. I have never been to such a sublime state. Everything is light and pure. Before this, I was just like a child in a fairy tale. Just picking up pebbles without seeing the beautiful flowers on the road. In May 1806, with only the consent of my dearest brother, I became engaged to him. The Fourth Symphony, written this year, is a pure flower. It contains the fragrance of the relatively peaceful days of his life. People say, Beethoven was trying his best to reconcile his genius with what ordinary people know and like in the forms left by the previous masters. This is true. The same spirit of compromise in Yuan Yuanzi's love also affected his behavior and lifestyle. Severit and Grabaza said that he was in a good mood, had an active mind, was courteous in his dealings, was tolerant of disgusting people, and was well-dressed. And he cleverly hid it from everyone, so that people didn't even think he was deaf. They said he was in good health, except that he was a little short-sighted. In Mandler's portrait of him, we can also see a romantic dix elegans. A slightly unnatural expression. Beethoven wanted to please people and knew that he had already won them. The lion is in love, his claws are hidden, but deep in his eyes. Even beneath the dreamy and tender mood of the Fourth Symphony, we can still feel the terrible power, the willful temper, the sudden anger. This profound peace does not last. But the beautiful influence of love lasted until 1810. Undoubtedly, it was through this influence that Beethoven gained his independence and produced the most complete fruits of his genius, such as the classical tragedy, Fifth Symphony. The Dream of the Gods at the End of the Summer, Pastoral Symphony, 1808, and Sonata Passion, which he considered to be the most powerful of his sonatas, inspired by Shakespeare's The Tempest, 1807. Dedicated to Dan Lands for him. The 78th volume of the complete collection, Sonata, 1809, which is full of fantasy and mystery, is also dedicated to Dan Lands. An undated letter written to his immortal lover, expressing the passion of his love. No less than enthusiasm sonata. My angel, my everything, my me, my heart is filled with words that I can't say to you. Ah! Wherever I am, you are always with me. When I think of you not being able to get to me before Sunday, my first news, I cried. I love you as much as you love me, but much stronger. Ah! Oh my gosh! What kind of life is it without you? So close, so far away. My immortal love, my thoughts rush to you, sometimes happily, then sadly, asking about fate. Ask it if there will ever be a day when it will accept our wishes. I can only live with you, otherwise I won't be able to live. No one will ever be able to occupy my heart again. Forever. Forever. Oh God! Why do people separate when they love each other? But my life now is a miserable life. Your love makes me the happiest and most miserable person at the same time. Quiet, quiet, love me. Today, yesterday, how enthusiastic. Longing, how many tears for you, you, my life, my everything. Farewell. Oh! Continue to love me, never misunderstand your dear Elle's heart. Forever yours, forever mine, forever ours. What mysterious reason hinders the happiness of this pair of lovers? Maybe it is the lack of property and the difference in status. Perhaps Beethoven felt humiliated and rebelled against being asked to wait for a long time and to keep this love secret. Perhaps because of his violent, sickly, and human-hating temperament, he inadvertently caused suffering to his lover. And he himself felt desperate because of it. The engagement was ruined, but neither of them seemed to have forgotten this love. Until the last moment of her life, Danelons de Brunswick still loved Beethoven. In 1816 Beethoven said, "When I think of her, my heart still beats as hard as the first day I saw her." In the same year, he made 6 pieces of dedicated to the distant lover. Song. He wrote in his notes, "As soon as I saw this wonderful creation, my mood was overflowing, but she was not here, not next to me." Dan Launcher once gave her portrait to Beethoven, with the inscription, "To rare geniuses, great artists, and kind people." T.B. in Beethoven's later years. A friend accidentally caught him hugging this portrait alone, crying and talking to himself loudly. This was his habit. "You are so beautiful, so great, just like an angel." The friend withdrew. He went out, and after a while he went back in and saw him playing the piano. He said to him, "Today, my friend, there is no fearful look on your face." Beethoven replied, "Because my good angel has visited me." The trauma is deeply engraved in his heart superior. He himself said, "Poor Beethoven, I don't have your happiness in this world. Only in the ideal realm can you find your friends." He wrote in his notes, "Submit, surrender deeply to your fate. You can no longer exist for yourself. but can only exist for others, for you. There is happiness only in your art. Oh God! Give me the courage to conquer myself. Love had deserted him. In 1810 he was once again alone, but glory had come, and he evidently felt his own power. He was in the prime of his life. He completely indulged his violent and rough temperament, and had no concern for society, customs, or the opinions of others. What else does he need to fear and deal with? Love is gone, ambition is gone. All that's left is strength. The joy of power requires its application and even its abuse. Power, this is the human spirit that is different from ordinary people. He repeated in a slovenly manner, and his behavior became more and more unrestrained. He knew he had the right to say whatever he wanted, even to the biggest men in the world. I recognize no mark of superiority except kindness, he wrote on July 17, 1812. Bettina Brontenot saw him then and said, "No emperor had such a strong sense of his own power." She was overwhelmed by his power and wrote to Goethe, "When I first saw him, the whole world disappeared before me. Beethoven made I forgot about the world." Even you have been forgotten, O Goethe. I dare to assert that this character was far ahead of modern civilization, and I believe I am right in saying this. Goethe tried to get to know Beethoven. 1812. Finally they met at the Bohemian bathing resort Topolez, but the result was not very favorable. Beethoven admired Goethe's genius passionately, but his too free and violent character could not be harmonized with Goethe's character. Without harming it. He once related the scene of their walk together, when the proud Republican gave the Privy Councillor of the Archduke of Weimar a lesson that Goethe could never forgive. Kings and ministers can create professors and important counselors, and they can reward them with titles and medals, but they cannot create great people, they cannot create minds that transcend the vulgar society, and when two people like me and Goethe are together such kings and nobles should feel our greatness. Yesterday, we met the entire royal family on our way back. We have seen it from afar. Goethe broke free from my arm and stood by the road. I said all my words to him in vain. He cannot be made to take another step. So I pressed my hat, buttoned my coat, and put my hands behind my back. Crash into the densest crowd. The prince and his ministers gathered closely. Prince Rodolphe took off his hat to me. The queen greeted me first. Those adults recognized me. Just for fun, I watched this procession pass in front of Goethe. He stood on the roadside, bent deeply, hat in hand. Afterwards, I gave him a serious lesson and was not polite to him at all. And Goethe did not forget it. The 7th Symphony and the 8th Symphony are works of this era, that is to say, they were written in Topolez in 1812. The former is a rhythmic symphony, and the latter is a humorous symphony. He is perhaps most at home in these two works, as he himself said, most, trying his best, with that kind of joy and frenzied excitement, the unexpected contrast, the staggering exaggerated wit, the giant-like sophistication Goethe and Zelt's panic broke out. There is a popular saying in northern Germany that the Seventh Symphony is the work of an alcoholic. Yes, it is the work of an intoxicated man, but it is also the product of strength and genius. He himself said, "I am the god of wine who brews wine for mankind. It is I who give people the highest spiritual enthusiasm." I don't know if he really wanted to describe a Dionysian celebration in the finale of the Seventh Symphony. In this bold country festival music, I especially saw his Flemish heritage. Similarly, in a country where discipline and obedience are valued, his unscrupulous behavior and conversation also originated from his own blood. No matter which work it is in. None of them are as frank and free as the Seventh Symphony. This is a purposeless waste of superhuman energy just for entertainment, like an overflowing river bottom filled with joy. In Symphony No. 8. Although the power is not so exaggerated, it is more peculiar and shows the author's characteristics, blending tragedy and comedy, being as strong as a warrior and as willful as a child. The year 1814 was the pinnacle of Beethoven's luck. At the Congress of Vienna, people think it's glorious for him to be a European. He was very active in the celebrations. The princes saluted him, and, as he himself proudly told Hitler, he gave himself up to their pursuit. He was inspired by the War of Independence. 1813. He wrote a Symphony of the Victory of Willingden. In early 1814, he wrote a warrior chorus, The Rebirth of Germany. On November 29, 1814, he wrote Among Many Kings Conduct a patriotic song from the front. The Season of Glory. In 1815, he wrote a chorus for the capture of Paris, It's Done. These timely works increased his reputation more than any other music. A woodcut by Brasius Heffer based on a sketch by François Ledron, and a face, mask, sculpted by Franz Klenn in 1813. The lively expression shows Beethoven's appearance at the Congress of Vienna. On his lion-like face, his jaws were clenched, etched with wrinkles of anger and anguish, but the most obvious character was his will, the Napoleonic will of his early years. It's a pity that I am not as good at war as I am at music. Otherwise I will defeat him. But his kingdom is not in this world, as he said when he wrote to François de Brunswick, My kingdom is in the sky. After this glorious time came the most miserable period. Vienna never took kindly to Beethoven. A proud and independent genius like him, here is frivolous, flashy. The capital city, which was hated by Huajenai, was unpopular. He seized every opportunity to leave Vienna. In 1808 he longed to leave Austria and go to the court of the Spherian king Xylem Bonaparte. But the source of music in Vienna is so rich, and we should not deny that there are often noble connoisseurs there who feel the greatness of Beethoven and are unwilling to let the country suffer the shame of losing this genius. 1809. Three wealthy nobles in Vienna, Prince Rodolph, Prince Lobogoix, and Prince Keski, Beethoven's students, promised to give him an annual salary of 4,000 florins, as long as he would stay in Austria. They said, "Obviously, a person can only devote himself completely to art when he has no financial worries and can produce these noble works to glorify art. Therefore, we are determined to provide Ludwig van Beethoven with material security. Avoid all obstacles that might hinder the development of his genius." Unfortunately, the subsidy did not live up to the promise. The subsidy was not paid in full, it soon ceased completely. And from the Congress of Vienna in 1814, the character of Vienna also changed. Society's attention shifted from art to politics. Musical tastes were corrupted by Italian styles. The fashion trend was Rossini and Beethoven was regarded as pedantic. Beethoven's friend and protector, scatter of scatter, death of death. Prince Keski died in 1812. Prince Lichnowsky died in 1814, and Lobkowitz died in 1816. Razumovsky, who was inscribed by Beethoven with the beautiful quartets of the Complete Works, Volume 59. The last concert was held in 1815. In the same year, Beethoven fell out with his childhood friend and Eleanor's brother, Stefan Hong Breuning. From then on he was alone. In his notes for 1816, he wrote, "No friends. Alone in the world." His ears were completely deaf. From the autumn of 1815, he only communicated with people in writing. The earliest conversation manual was from 1816. About Philippines, in 1822 the experience of the preview of Olympus. There is a harrowing account by Hindler. Beethoven asked to conduct the last prelude himself. From the second part of the first act, it was obvious that he had not heard the singing on the stage. He delayed the progress of the music a lot. While the orchestra followed his baton, the singer on stage hurried forward minding his own business. The result is that everything is in disarray. Omloff, the regular conductor of the orchestra, suggested taking a break without giving any reason. After exchanging a few words with the singer, everyone started again. The same disorder occurred again. Had to take another break. There is no doubt that he would not be able to continue working under Beethoven's command, but how to make him understand? No one had the heart to say to him, "Go away, poor fellow, you can no longer command." Beethoven became uneasy. Amid the commotion, he looked around, trying to guess the crux of the problem from different faces, but everyone was silent. He suddenly called me in a commanding tone. As I approached, he handed me the conversation manual and motioned for me to write it. I wrote, "I beg you not to continue. I will tell you the reason when I get back." So he jumped off the stage and shouted to me, "Let's go." He ran home in one breath, went in, and fell motionless on the couch, holding his face in his hands, and so he remained until supper time. He said nothing during the meal, and maintained an expression of the most profound pain. After dinner, when I wanted to say goodbye, he kept me, saying he didn't want to be home alone. When we parted ways, he asked me to accompany him to see a doctor who was famous for his otology. In all my friendship with Beethoven, there was no day that could compare with this fatal day in November. He was wounded in his heart and would never forget the memory of this terrible scene until his death. 2 years later, on May 7, 1824, he conducted, or, more accurately, participated in conducting matters, as noted in the program, the Choral Symphony and Times. He did not hear the unanimous cheers of the audience. He was not aware of it at all, until a female singer took his hand and turned him towards the crowd, and then he suddenly saw the audience standing up, waving their hats, and applauding him. Russell, a British traveler. I saw him playing the piano in 1825 and said that when he wanted to express softness, the keys would not make any sound. It was really touching to see his emotional expression in the silence, with his face and fingers twitching. Reclusive in his inner life, isolated from the rest of humanity, he could only find some comfort in nature. Dans Brunswick said, "Nature is his only confidant." It became his refuge. Charles Nader, who met him in 1815, said that he had never seen a man who loved flowers, trees, clouds, and nature as much as he did. He seemed to live by nature. Beethoven wrote, "There is no one in the world who loves the fields as much as I do. I love a tree more than a person." When he was in Vienna, he walked a circle along the city wall every day. In the countryside, from dawn to night, he walked alone, without a hat, in the sun, wind, and rain. Almighty God! I am happy in the forest. I am happy in the forest, every tree conveys your voice. Oh my God! How amazing! In these woods, on these hills, there is silence, quiet at your service. His mental turmoil found some solace in nature. He was exhausted by money worries. In 1818 he wrote, "I have almost reached the point of begging, and I still have to pretend that daily life is not difficult." Furthermore, he said, Sonata in Volume 106 of the Complete Works was written in an emergency. It is a hard thing to work in exchange for bread. Spohr said he often couldn't go out because of holes in his boots. He was heavily in debt to his publisher. And the work cannot be sold for money. When Missa in D was released for pre-order, there were only 7 pre-orders, and none of them were musicians. All his wonderful sonatas, each of which cost him 3 months' work. It only earned him 30 to 40 dugas. The quartets that Prince Galitzin asked him to compose, Collection Volumes 127, 130, 132, are perhaps the most profound of his works, as if they were written with blood and tears, but in the end he never got a penny. Beethoven was tortured by daily embarrassments and endless lawsuits, whether to fulfill the promise of a stipend or to fight for custody of his nephew, because his brother Karl died in 1815. He suffered from lung disease and left behind a son. All the warmth in his heart was poured into this child. Here again cruel pain awaited him. It was as if the benevolence of circumstances had deliberately supplied him with a constant supply and increased his sufferings, so that his genius would not be deprived of nourishment. He first wanted to compete with his low-class brother-in-law for his little Karl. He wrote, "Oh my God, my wall, my defense, my only refuge. You are visible to the depths of my soul. You saw my pain when I caused pain to those who competed with me for Karl. Please listen to me, I don't know what to call your God. Please accept my fervent prayer, for I am the most unfortunate wretch among your creatures. O God, please help me. You see, I was abandoned by all mankind because I was unwilling to compromise with injustice. Accept my prayer and let me, at least in the future, live with my Karl. O cruel fate, unshakable fate. No, no. My suffering will never end." Then, this passionately loved nephew seemed unworthy of his uncle's trust. Beethoven's letters to him were painful and indignant, just like Michelangelo's letters to his brothers. But it is more innocent and touching. Do I have to accept the most humble reward of ruthlessness? Forget it. If the relationship between us is going to break, let it break. When all fair people know this, everyone will hate you. If the bondage which binds you to us becomes too much for you, then, by God's name, may all things be done according to His will. I commit you to the most holy and high God. I have done all I can. Power. I dare to stand before the highest judgment. For a spoiled child like you, it will not harm you to learn sincerity and simplicity. Your hypocritical behavior towards me makes my heart too painful. Unforgettable, God can bear witness. I just want to run thousands of miles away, away from you, away from this poor brother and this ugly family. I can't trust you anymore. The following signature is, unfortunately, your father, or better, not your father. But forgiveness followed immediately. My dear son, don't say another word. Come into my arms and you won't hear a harsh word. I will receive you with the same love. We will discuss how to arrange your future in a friendly manner. I guarantee it with honor. No words of blame. That's useless. All you can expect from me is diligence and the kindest help. Come to your father's loyal heart. Come on, and go home as soon as you receive the letter. On the envelope it was written again in French. If you don't come, I will die for you. He begged again, don't lie, always be my dearest son. How ugly and harsh it would be if you repaid me with hypocrisy, as I was led to believe. Farewell. Although I never gave birth to you, I did raise you and did my best to cultivate your spiritual development. Now, with a love that is more than a father's love, I beg you from the bottom of my heart to embark on the path of kindness and integrity. The main road. Your loyal father. This nephew was not lacking in intelligence. Beethoven originally wanted to lead him to higher education. However, after planning countless wonderful dreams for his future, he had to allow him to study business. But Karl came and went. Casino. Got a lot of debt. By a sad oddity, more common than one imagines, the greatness of the uncle's spirit was not only useless to his nephew, but harmful to him, exasperating him and making him rebellious, as he himself said. Because my uncle wanted me to move up, I became even meaner. This terrible statement vividly revealed the soul of this prodigal son. He even shot himself in the head in 1826. However, he did not die. Beethoven almost died because of it. He could never shake off the embarrassment he suffered from it. Karl recovered. He had made his uncle suffer all the time, and it had nothing to do with his uncle's death. Beethoven was dying. He was not present. A few years ago, Beethoven wrote in a letter to his nephew, "God has never abandoned me. Someone will eventually close my eyes for me." However, the person who closed his eyes was not the person he called son. In this abyss of misery, Beethoven was engaged in singing joy. This was his lifelong plan. He had had this idea since 1793, when he was at Bonn. He will sing joy all his life, and this song will be the ending of one of his great works. Carol form. He hesitated all his life about these issues as well as which work to include them in. Even in the Ninth Symphony, he had never made up his mind. Until the last moment, he wanted to keep the Ode to Joy and put it in the 10th or 11th Symphony. We should note that the original title of the Ninth Symphony is not the choral symphony that is commonly used today, but a symphony ending with a chorus of joyous odes. The Ninth Symphony could and should have had another ending. In July 1823, Beethoven also wanted to give it an instrumental ending. This ending was later used in the quartet in Volume 132 of the Complete Works. Chiuni and Zanlaetna confirmed that even after the performance, May 1824, Beethoven had not given up his intention to end with instrumental music. There are great technical difficulties in introducing chorus into a symphony. This can be seen from Beethoven's manuscripts. He made many experiments and wanted to use other methods and introduce chorus in other passages of this work. In Adagio's manuscript for the second theme, he writes, "Perhaps the chorus could begin appropriately here." But he couldn't break up with his loyal band decisively. He said, "When I find a musical idea, I always hear the sound of the instruments, never the human voice." Therefore, he delayed the use of singing as much as possible. He even gave the theme to instrumental music first, not only for the chanting of the ending, but also for the theme of joy. To explain these delays and hesitations, we go one step further. They also have deeper reasons. This unfortunate man was forever tormented by sorrow and always wanted to celebrate the beauty of joy, but year after year he postponed this undertaking because he was always involved in the whirlpool of passion and sorrow. He didn't fulfill his wish until the last day of his life, but how great it was when he accomplished it. When the joyful theme first appeared, the band suddenly stopped. There was an unexpected silence. This gave the singing a mysterious and divine air. And that's good, the subject is indeed a god. Joy descends from heaven, wrapped in unreal tranquility. It soothes pain with its gentle breath. And when it slips into the heart of a person who has just recovered from a serious illness, the first caress is so gentle that, like Beethoven's friend, one cannot help but shed tears when seeing his soft eyes. When the theme then transitions to the human voice, it is first expressed by the bass, with a serious and oppressed mood. Slowly, joy takes hold of life. It is a conquest, a struggle against pain. Then comes the rhythm of the march. The mighty army, the tenor's warm and urgent songs. In these boiling movements, we can hear Beethoven's breath, his breathing, and the rhythm of his induced shouts, vividly showing him running in the fields, composing his music. Driven by intoxicating passion, he is like King Lear in a thunderstorm. After the joy of war comes the intoxication of religion, then comes the sacred banquet, and the excitement of love. The entire human race opened its arms to the sky and rushed towards joy, hugging it tightly in his arms. The giant's masterpiece finally defeated the vulgarity of the masses. The frivolous atmosphere of Vienna was shaken for a moment by it. This capital was completely dominated by Rossini and Italian opera. Under the influence of Beethoven was depressed and melancholy, and was thinking of moving to London to play the Ninth Symphony there. As in 1809, several noble friends came to beg him not to leave his country. They said, "We know that you have completed a new sacred music, expressing the sentiments inspired by your profound faith. A surreal light that permeates your soul illuminates this work. We also know that your great symphony is at the bottom of the crown. Another immortal flower has been added. Your silence in recent years has made everyone who pays attention to you feel sad. It is sad for everyone to think that when foreign music is transplanted into our land, the products of German art are forgotten. Our genius, which occupies such a high position among mankind, remains silent. Only in you, the entire nation is looking forward to new life, new glory, and establishing a new era of truth and beauty regardless of the current trend. I hope you can make our hopes come true soon. I hope that with your genius, the future spring will be doubly prosperous for us and mankind." This impassioned letter proves the prestige Beethoven enjoys among Germany's elite classes. Not only artistically, but also morally. When his admirers praised his genius, the first word that came to mind was neither scholarship nor art, but faith. Beethoven was moved by these words and decided to stay. On May 7, 1824, the first concert of Missa in D and Ninth Symphony was held in Vienna, which was an unprecedented success. The situation was so intense that it almost had the character of a riot. When Beethoven appears, he was welcomed by the crowd with 5 applauses. In this country that pays attention to etiquette, it is customary to only applaud 3 times when the royal family appears. So the police had to intervene. The symphony caused a feverish commotion. Many people cried. Beethoven was so moved that he fainted after the performance. Everyone carried him to the Hindle house, where he fell asleep half-dressed and did not drink or eat until the next morning. But the victory was temporary and brought no profit to Beethoven. The concert never made him any money. The embarrassment of material life remains the same. He was poor, sick, and lonely, but he defeated human mediocrity, defeated his own destiny, and defeated his pain. Sacrifice. Always sacrifice all the ignorance of life for your art. Art, this is God above all else. So he has achieved the goal of his life. He has caught joy. But on this spiritual peak that controls the storm, can he stay here long? Of course, he still has to fall into the pain of the past from time to time. Of course, his last quartets are full of strange shades. But the Ninth Symphony was a triumph. It seems that it has left its glorious mark in Beethoven's heart. His future plans are Symphony No. 10, Prelude in memory of Barha, music for Grabazers, Manlacina, and music for Goners, Otes. The music composed by Goethe's Faust and the sacred drama of David and Saul all show that his spirit is inclined to the clear and tranquil state of the ancient German masters, Barha and Hunter, especially the tendency in the south, southern France, or Italy, which he dreamed of traveling. Dr. Spiller saw him in 1826 and reported that he had become cheerful and vigorous. In the same year, when Grabazza met him for the last time, it was Beethoven who came to encourage the decadent poet. He said, "If only I could have 1,000th of your physical strength and perseverance. The times are difficult. The reaction of authoritarian politics is oppressing the ideological world." Grabazza groaned, "The censorship of speech killed me." If a person wants freedom of speech, if you want freedom of thought, you have to go to North America. But no power can suppress Beethoven's thoughts. The poet Kefner wrote to him, "Words are bound. Fortunately, the voice is still free." Beethoven is the great voice of freedom. Perhaps the only free voice in German thought at that time. He felt it himself. He often mentioned that his responsibility is to dedicate his art to poor humans and future humans, to benefit them and give them courage. Awaken their dreams and rebuke their cowardice. He wrote to his nephew, "Our era requires strong hearts to spur these poor people." In 1827, Dr. Miller said, "Beethoven has great influence on the government, the police, and the aristocracy." Always feel free to express your opinions, even in public. The police authorities knew full well, but regarded his criticism and ridicule as harmless rumblings, and therefore allowed this radiant genius to live in peace. Thus, nothing can bring this untamed force to its knees. Now it seems to be playing with pain. The music written in these last few years, despite the harsh environment, often has a new look, mocking, contemptuous, and happy. Completed for months before his death in November 1826, the new ending of the Quartet of Complete Works 130 is very light. In fact, this kind of happiness is not the kind that ordinary people have. Sometimes it's what Mohills calls a laugh and a curse. Sometimes it's a touching smile after overcoming such pain. In short, he won. He doesn't believe in death. But death finally came. The end of November 1826. He caught a pleuritic cold. He fell ill in Vienna, returning from a trip to pursue his nephew's future. Friends are far away. He sent his nephew to find a doctor. It is said that this insensitive guy forgot his mission. It took 2 days to remember again. The doctor came too late and treated me poorly. For 3 months, his athletic physique struggled with the disease. On January 3, 1827, he made his beloved nephew his official heir. He thought of his dear friend on the Rhine. He wrote to Wiegeler, "How I wish to talk to you. But I am too weak to do anything but embrace you and your Locken in my heart." Had it not been for a few heroic British friends, the misery of poverty would have enveloped him almost to the last moment of his life. He became very gentle, very patient. On February 17, 1827, I was lying on my deathbed, after 3 operations. Waiting for the 4th time, he said calmly during the wait, "I am patient and thought, all disasters bring some goodness. This good is liberation, and as he said before his death, the end of comedy, we say it is the end of tragedy in his life." He breathed his last in the storm, snow, and thunder. A strange hand closed his eyes, March 26, 1827. Dear Beethoven, many people have praised his artistic greatness. But he is far more than the first musician, but the most heroic force in modern art. He is the greatest and best friend to the suffering and struggling man in general. When we feel sad about the disaster of the world, he will come to us, as if he were sitting next to a mother in mourning clothes, and without saying a word, he will sing his forbearing lamentations on the piano to comfort the weeping person. When we are vulgar about virtue and goodness, we struggle until the hour of exhaustion. Dip yourself in this ocean of will and faith, and you will reap indescribable benefits. What he imparts to us is a courage, a joy of struggle, and a sense of intoxication with the presence of God. It's as if he is in constant communication with nature. He was actually infected with the profound power of nature. Grabaza admired Beethoven with fear. When referring to him, he said, "The state he reached is where art is actually mixed with wild and weird atoms." When Schumann mentioned the Fifth Symphony, he also said, "Even though you hear it often, it always has an unchanging power on you, just like a phenomenon in nature. Although it happens from time to time, it always fills people with fear and surprise." His close friend Schindler said, "He captured the spirit of nature. This is good. Beethoven is a force in nature. When a primitive force comes into contact with the rest of nature, it produces the grandeur of Homer's epic. His life was like a thunderstorm day. First it was a morning as clear as water. Just a few lazy breezes. But in the still air, there was already a faint threat, a heavy foreboding. Then suddenly a huge shadow rolled over. The tragic roar of thunder, the eerie silence full of sound, the violent winds, the Eroica Symphony, and the Fifth Symphony. However, the pure spirit at the end of the day has not been damaged yet. Joy is still joy. Sadness always holds a glimmer of hope. But after 1810, the balance of the mind was lost. The daylight becomes strange. The clearest thoughts also seem to be rising like water vapor, sometimes scattered, sometimes condensed. Their desolate and strange commotion covers the heart, and often the musical thoughts float in the mist once or twice, then disappear completely and are submerged, only to reappear in a violent rush at the end of the song. Even happiness itself has a bitter and wild quality. All sentiments are mixed with a fever, a poison. Dusk is approaching and a thunderstorm is brewing. Then came the heavy clouds, filled with lightning, dyeing the night black. It was the beginning of the Ninth Symphony amid heavy wind and rain. Suddenly, when it was windy and rainy, the darkness cracked and the night was driven away from the sky. Thanks to the power of will, the clarity of the day was returned to us. What victory can compare to this victory? Which battle in Bonaparte, which day in the sunshine of Ostenres, ever achieved the glory of this superhuman effort? Ever attained such a triumph as the soul has never attained? A person who is unhappy, poor, crippled, lonely, caused by pain. The world did not give him joy, but he created joy to give to the world. He used his suffering to create joy, as he used that heroic saying to illustrate, that can sum up his life and can become a motto for all heroic hearts, Joy in exchange for pain. Beethoven's Testament. Adagio. Outline, outline, outline. Alone, alone, alone. To Lichnowsky, September 12, 1814. The Will of Elin Jenksita To my brothers Karl and Johann Beethoven Oh, you people who think of me, or cause others to think of me, as spiteful, crazy, or cynical, you have so slandered me. You don't know the secret reasons behind those appearances. Since childhood, my heart and spirit have been inclined towards the sentiment of compassion. Even I am always ready to accomplish some great things. But you think. My health has been in such bad shape for the past 6 years. The mindless doctors have worsened my illness. I have been deceived year after year, with no hope of improvement. Finally, I have to see a lasting disease, even if I am cured. It's not completely hopeless. It also takes a long time. I was born with an enthusiastic and active personality, and could even adapt to society's pastimes. However, I was forced to separate from human beings long ago and live a lonely life. If sometimes I have to get over it, always blocked by the tragic experience of my disability. But I can't say to people, speak louder, just shout, because I am deaf. How could I let people know that something was wrong with one of my senses? This sense in me should be particularly superior to that of others, and my sense was indeed more complete than anyone else in the music world. I can't do this. So if you see me being lonely, please forgive me. Because in my heart I want to be with people. My calamity was doubly painful to me because I was misunderstood because of it. It is forbidden for me to find comfort in the exchanges of people, in subtle conversations, in mutual outpourings. Lonely. Complete loneliness. The more I need to show up in society, the more I can't take risks. I can only live the life of an outlaw. If I approached a group, my heart would break with pain, lest people discover my illness. So I recently lived in the country for 6 months. My wise doctor advised me to preserve my hearing as much as possible. He catered to my wishes. However, many times when I feel that I must get closer to society, I can't help but go. But what a humiliation it is when the person next to me hears the sound of a flute in the distance and I hear nothing, or he hears the shepherd boy singing, and I hear nothing. Experiences like this almost drove me to despair. It was too late for me not to commit suicide. It's art, it's just art that keeps me. I felt that I could not leave this world until I had accomplished all that I felt was my calling. In this way, I always endured this miserable situation. It's really tragic. Life, such a weak body, a body where a few changes have turned health into disease. Patience. People say this, now I can only use it as my guide. I already have patience. I hope my determination to resist lasts until the ruthless god of death comes to cut off my vital glands. Maybe it's better, maybe not. I've sorted it out anyway. At the age of 28, I have to see through everything. This is not easy. To maintain this attitude is harder for an artist than for others. God, you have penetrated my heart in heaven, you know it, you know that it has love for mankind and the desire to do good. Oh people, if you read this one day, Don't forget that you have been unfair to me. I hope that unfortunate people can comfort themselves by seeing a fellow sufferer, regardless of the obstacles of nature, doing his best to stand among artists and outstanding people. You. My brothers Karl and Johann, after my death, if Professor Schmidt is still alive, I will ask him in my name to give a detailed account of my illness and add this letter to my medical history. Let society reconcile with me as much as possible after my death. At the same time, I admit that you are the inheritors of some of my meager inheritance. Fair and equitable distribution, harmony and love, and mutual help in emergencies. You know that I have forgiven you for the harm you have done me. You. Brother Karl, I especially appreciate your loyalty to me these days. I wish you a happier life, not full of troubles like mine. Teach your children virtue. It is virtue, not money, that makes people happy. This is my experience. What supported me in times of trouble was morality, and what kept me from committing suicide was not only art but also morality. Farewell, just love each other. I am grateful to all my friends, especially Prince Lichnowsky and Professor Himmet. I hope that Lichnowsky's instrument can be preserved in the hands of any of you. But don't argue about it. If it helps you, then feel free to sell it without hesitation. If I were in the tomb, I could still help you. How rejoicing I will be! If so, I will fly to death with such joy. If death comes before I have developed all my faculties, then, although my fate is unfortunate, I think it comes too early. I pray that it can be slowed down. But even so, I am happy. Didn't it free me from endless pain? Death can come whenever it wants, and I will welcome you bravely. Farewell. Do not completely forget me in death. I am worthy of your thoughts, because I often miss you while I am alive and want to make you happy. I wish you happiness. Ludwig van Beethoven. October 6, 1802. Aaron Gung Hidato. Unwrapped and executed after my death by my brothers Karl and John, Erlingenbach, October 10, 1802. With this, I bid you farewell. Sadly, of course. Yes. My hope. The hope of at least some degree of recovery left me. Just like the leaves of autumn falling and withering. This hope has withered and died for me. Almost the same as when I arrived. I went. That is the greatest courage. What had supported me so many wonderful summers was gone. O Almighty Lord, give me a day of pure happiness. How long has it been since I heard the profound voice of joy? Oh! When, O God? When can I feel joy again in the temple of nature and humanity? Never? No. Oh! This is so cruel. Letter. Beethoven's letter to Pastor Amanda. My dear, my good Amanda, my dearest friend, read the letter. There was pain and joy in my heart. What can compare to your loyalty and sincerity to me? Oh, it's great that you always have such friendship for me. Yes, I have put your loyalty to the test. And I can tell you apart from other friends. You are not a friend of Vienna, no, you are one of the characters my hometown can produce. I wish you could always be by my side. Because your Beethoven is extremely pitiful. I must know that the noblest part of me, my hearing, has greatly diminished. When you were around me, I already felt many signs that I hid, but they got worse and worse from then on. It is still unknown whether it will be cured. This probably has something to do with my stomach discomfort. But it's almost healed. But is there any hope of my hearing being healed? Of course I hope so, but it's very unlikely because there is no cure for this type of disease. I have to live a miserable life. Avoid all my beloved characters, especially in a world so pitiful and selfish. Of all people, I can say that my most reliable friend is Lichniski. Since last year till now he has given me 600 florins. In addition to this amount, plus the money from the sales of my works, I no longer have to worry about daily bread. What I write now is immediately wanted by 4 or 5 publishers, and it sells for a good price. I have written a lot recently. Since I know that you ordered the piano from XX store, I can package and send you various works together with the piano, so that you spend less money. Now, my consolation is that I have a friend with whom I can enjoy some heart-to-heart conversations. And pure friendship, it was one of those boyhood friends. He and I often talked about you, and I told him that you were one of my heartily chosen friends since I left my hometown. He is not happy with times either. He has always been too weak to bear friendship. I completely think that he and times can use it when they are happy, but they will never understand my noble activities, nor can they sincerely participate in my life. I only repay them based on their efforts for me. Oh, how happy I will be. If only I had perfect use of my hearing. Then I will run to you. But I had to stay away from everything, my best years were wasted, and I never achieved what my talents and strength were capable of. I have to find shelter in the forbearance of sadness. Although I have vowed to transcend these disasters, but how is it possible? Yes, Amanda, if I am not cured of my illness within 6 months, I ask you to drop everything and come to me. At that time I will travel. My piano playing and composition are not yet very affected by the disability. Only when socializing with people is particularly bad. You will be my traveling companion. I am sure that happiness will not be lacking. Now is there anything I can't be shorter or longer with? Since you left, I have written everything, even opera and religious music. Yes, you will not refuse. You will help your friend bear his sickness and cares. My piano playing has also improved greatly, and I hope this trip will make you happy. Then you stay with me forever. I receive all your letters. Although I reply to very few letters, you are always in front of me. My heart beats for you with the same tenderness. As for my hearing, please keep it a secret and don't mention it to anyone. Letter from Duo Duo. Even a few lines can comfort and benefit me. I hope a letter will come soon, my dearest friend. I did not send you your quartet because it has been greatly revised since I became aware of the formal writing of the quartet. You will see for yourself in the future. Farewell now, dear good fellow. If I could do something for you that would make you happy. Needless to say, you should tell faithful Beethoven that he sincerely loves you. Beethoven to Franz Gerhard Wegler Vienna, June 29, 1801. My dear good Weigel, thank you for your attention. I really do not deserve it, and my behavior does not deserve your attention, yet you are so kind-hearted that not even my unforgivable silence can depress you. You are always a faithful, compassionate, and upright friend. Say I can forget you. Forget you whom I love and cherish so much. No, this is unbelievable. Sometimes I miss you passionately and want to spend some time beside you. My hometown, the beautiful place where I was born. It is still clearly before my eyes, just as it was when I left you. It will be part of the happiest years of my life when I get to see you again and pay tribute to our Father Rhine. I can't say for sure when it will be realized. At least I can tell you that then you will find that I have grown up, not in terms of art, but in terms of human life. You will find that I am kinder and more complete, if our country has not made any progress yet. My art should be used to improve the lot of poor people. If you want to know something about my current situation, then it's not bad. Since last year Lichnowsky, although you find it hard to believe what I told you, has been my warmest friend. There was a slight misunderstanding between us, but it strengthened our friendship. He gave me an annual allowance of 600 florins until I found a comparable job in the future. My music has made me a lot of money. It can be said that I am overwhelmed by the works that others have ordered. There were 6 or 7 publishers vying for each piece. People no longer bargain with me. I set a price and they pay it. Look how wonderful this is. For example, if I see a friend in trouble, if my wallet is not enough to help him, I just need to sit in front of my desk and his problem will be solved in an instant. I am also more frugal than before. Misfortune, jealous demon, my weak body. He actually came to make trouble for me. Over the past 3 years, my hearing has gradually declined. This was probably influenced by the discomfort I had in my stomach, which you know I had before, and which was now worse, for I had constant diarrhea, followed by extreme weakness. Frank wanted to nourish me with tonics and heal my ears with peppermint oil. But it was of no use. My hearing was getting worse and worse, and my stomach remained the same. This situation lasted until last fall, when I often fell into despair. One doctor, who was as stupid as a donkey, advised me to take a cold bath. Another, a more intelligent doctor, advised me to go to the Danube and take a warm bath. This was very effective. My tummy is better, but my ears are still the same, or worse. Last winter. My body was in terrible shape. I had severe abdominal pain and was in full swing. This continued until last month, when I went to consult Fan Lin because I thought my illness should be diagnosed and treated by a surgeon, and I always believed in him. He almost completely stopped my diarrhea, and advised me to take a warm bath with some bodybuilding wine in the water. He did not give me any medicine, and until 4 days ago he gave me some pills for stomach problems and a medicine for ears. I feel better. The body is also stronger, only the ears are ringing day and night. For 2 years I avoided all society. I could not say to people, I am deaf. If I had been in another profession, it might have been okay, but in my line of work, it was a terrible experience. What will the enemies say? And their numbers are considerable. To give you an idea of my strange deafness, let me tell you that in the theater I had to sit close to the orchestra in order to understand what the actors were saying. I can't hear the high notes of instruments and singing if the seats are further away. In conversation, some people never noticed my illness, which was really strange. When people talk softly, I barely hear something. Yes, I hear sounds, but I can't make out the words. But when people screamed, I was in unbearable pain. What the outcome will be, only God knows. Fan Lin said he would definitely get better, even if he couldn't fully recover. I often curse my life and my Creator. Plotarch taught me how to be patient. I will challenge my fate whenever possible, but sometimes I am God's most pitiful creature. I beg you not to tell anyone about my illness, not even to Lehen. I entrust this matter to you as a secret. I'd be happy if you could write to Fan Lin to discuss this issue. If my current situation is to continue, I will come to you next spring. You can rent me a country house in some beautiful place, and I will be a countryman for 6 months again. Maybe this will do me some good. Forbearance. What a sad shelter. But this is my only way out. Forgive me for adding to all your troubles the trouble of friendship. Stefan Bruning is here now. We are together almost every day. Looking back on the emotions I felt back then brings me great comfort. He had grown up to be a good and splendid young man, quite intelligent, and, like us, pure of heart. I also want to write to Locken. Even if I hear nothing from you. I have not forgotten any of you, dear good people, but writing letters, you know, has never been my specialty, and my best friends have not received a letter from me for many years. I live my life only in notes. A work is not finished until it is finished. Another one has begun. The way I work now, I tend to write 3 or 4 things at once. Let me write from time to time. I will find some time to answer you. Say hello to everyone for me. Farewell, my faithful, good Weagle. Believe in your Beethoven love and friendship. Letter to predecessors. Vienna, November 16, 1801. My good Weagle, thank you for your renewed concern for me, especially since I don't deserve it. You need to know how my body is. What is needed? Although I feel so uncomfortable talking about this subject, I am more than happy to tell you. Fan Lin had been applying foaming medicine to my arms for several months. This treatment made me extremely unhappy. Needless to say, it was painful. I won't be able to use my arms for another day or two. I have to admit that the ringing in my ears is less than before, especially in the left ear, which was the first to suffer, but my hearing has not improved at all so far. I can't decide if it gets worse. My stomach feels much better, especially after I take a warm bath for a few days. I feel comfortable for 8 or 10 days. Every so often, I take some stomach-strengthening medicine. I also follow your advice and apply herbal medicine on my abdomen. Fan Lin didn't want me to mention the rain shower. Besides, I don't like him very much. He is so careless and inconsiderate about such a disease. If I don't go to him, and this is a lot of trouble for me, I never see him. What do you think of him? I'm not happy to change doctors. But it seems that Fan Lin is too particular about surgery and is unwilling to supplement his knowledge from books. It appears completely different in this regard, and perhaps not as careless as him. People say that direct current has magical effects. What do you think? A doctor told me. He saw a deaf and mute child regain his hearing, and a man who had been deaf for 7 years was healed. I heard that Himmet had experience in this area. My life is more pleasant again. I have more contact with people. You can hardly believe what a lonely and sad life I have lived these past 2 years. My disability blocks me everywhere, like a ghost, and I hide from the crowd. Others may think that I hate humans, but I don't. Today's changes are caused by a dear and lovely girl. She loves me and I love her. This is the happy day I have encountered again in the past 2 years. It is also the first time that I feel that marriage can give people happiness. Unfortunately, she and I are in different circumstances. And now, to be honest, I can't get married yet. I still have to fight bravely. If it weren't for my hearing, I would have traveled halfway around the world, and this is what I should do. Think about my art and express it in front of others. There is no greater pleasure for me. Don't think that I will be happy in your home. Who else can make me happy? Even your courtesy will be a burden to me. I will always see expressions of sympathy on your faces, which will make me more distressed. What attracts me to the beautiful countryside of my hometown? It's just a hope for a better environment, and this hope, if not for this disease, would have been realized long ago. Oh! If I could get rid of this disease, I would embrace the world. My youth, yes, I think it has just begun. Haven't I always been sick? My physical strength and mental abilities have improved by leaps and bounds recently. I glimpse a goal of which I cannot be certain, and every day I draw nearer to it. Only in this kind of thinking. Your Beethoven will survive. No rest at all. I don't know what kind of rest I have except sleep, and unfortunately I have to spend more time on sleep than before. I wish I could free myself half from my illness, then. I will come to you as a more independent and mature person to strengthen our everlasting friendship. I should be as happy as possible in this world. Never be distressed. No, I can't stand this. I want to grab fate by the throat. It will never bring me to complete surrender. Oh, how beautiful it is to be able to live your life 1,000 times. I was not born to live a quiet life. Send millions of love to Luo Hen for me. You do love me a little bit, don't you? Believe in my love and friendship. Your Beethoven. Letters to Beethoven from Weigel and Eleonore Hahn Bruning. Koblenz, December 28, 1825. Dear old friend Ludwig. When I was sending one of Liszt's 10 sons to Vienna, I can't help but think of you. If you have not received a long letter every 2 months in the 28 years since I left Vienna, you should blame your silence after the last 2 letters I sent you. This is a no-no, especially now. Because we old people are so happy to live in the past, our greatest joy is the memories of our youth. At least for me, it was through your mother, God bless her, that I gained my acquaintance and close friendship with you. It is the brightest point in my life, which I am happy to look back on. When I look at you from a distance, it is like looking at a hero. I can proudly say, I have not had no influence on his development. He once confided to me his wishes and fantasies. Later, when he was often misunderstood, I realized what his interests were. Thank God for allowing me to talk about you with my wife and now my children. My mother-in-law's home is more loving to you than your own. Especially since the death of your noble mother. Tell us again, yes, I miss you both in joy and in sorrow. Even if a person rises as high as you, he will only be happy once in his life, when he is young. Penn, Kladsburg. Godsburg, Bebignier, etc., should be places where your thoughts happily linger. Now I want to tell you about me and us, so that you can have an example when writing your reply. After returning from Vienna in 1796. My circumstances were not favorable. For several years I had to earn my living by practicing medicine, and it was many years before I had enough to eat and clothe myself in this miserable place. Later I became a professor, received a salary, and got married in 1802. A year later I gave birth to a daughter, who is still alive and well educated. In addition to her upright judgment, she inherited her father's clear temperament. She played Beethoven's sonata very movingly. She doesn't deserve much praise in this regard, it's all about talent. In 1807 I had a son, who is now studying medicine in Berlin. In 4 years I will send him to Vienna. Will you take care of him? This past August I celebrated my 60th birthday, and I was visited by about 60 friends and acquaintances, among whom were some of the leading figures in the city. I have lived here since 1807, and now have a beautiful house and a good position. My superior expressed satisfaction with me, and the king awarded me a medal and a title. Luohen and I are both in good health. Okay, I've told you everything about our situation, it's your turn. Would you never turn your eyes away from St. Etienne's Church? Doesn't traveling make you happy? Don't you want to see Rhine again? Lehen and I express our infinite sincerity to you. Your old friend Weigel. Koblenz. December 29, 1825. Dear Beethoven, dear one for so many years. It is my wish that Weigel should write to you again. Now that this wish has come true, I think I should add a few words, not only to remind you of me in particular, and to aggravate our request, I ask you if you have no intention of seeing the Rhine and your birthplace again, and give Weigel and me the greatest joy. Our Langhen thanks you for the many happy hours you have given her. How glad she is to hear us speak of you. She knows in detail the little stories of our youth in Bonn, the quarrels and the reconciliations. How glad she will be to see you. Unfortunately, this girl has no musical talent, but she has put in a lot of effort and is so diligent and persistent. She was actually able to play your sonata and variations, etc., and because music was always the greatest comfort to Wei, she spent a lot of happy time with him. Julius is quite talented in music, but he still doesn't know how to put it into practice. He has been happily studying the cello for 6 months. Since there are many good professors in Berlin, I believe he can make progress. The 2 children are very tall, just like their father. Wei has maintained it till now, thank God. Children also have a gentle and happy mood. Wei loved to play themes from your variations. Old people have their own preferences, but he also played new ones, often with incredible patience. Your songs are especially fond of him. Wei never entered his room without sitting on the piano. Therefore, dear Beethoven, you can see how vividly and persistently we miss you. I hope you can tell us that this is of some value to you, that we have not been completely forgotten by you. Were it not for the fact that our most ardent wishes are often difficult to realize, we would have come to see you at my brother's house in Vienna, but this trip is impossible, as our son is now in Berlin. Wei has told you our situation. We should not complain. Even the most difficult times are much better for us than for most other people. The greatest happiness is that we are in good health and have good and innocent children. Yes. They have never caused us any embarrassment. They are happy, kind children. There was but one great sorrow in Longhen, and that was when our poor White Scot died, which none of us will forget. Farewell, dear Beethoven. Please think of us with compassion. Eleanor Weigel. Beethoven's letter to Weigel Vienna, December 7, 1826. Dear old friend, I cannot express how much joy you and your Lachen letters have given me. Of course I should have replied immediately, but I am lazy by nature, especially when it comes to writing letters, because I think my best friend can get to know me without me writing. I answer you all the time in my head, but when it comes time to write it down, often I leave my pen far away because I can't write what I feel. I remember the love you always showed me. For example, you taught someone to paint my room, which made me unexpectedly happy. I also don't forget the Brownings. It is natural to be separated from each other. Each has his own future to pursue. Only the principle of good that can never be shaken connects us forever and firmly. Unfortunately, I can't write you a letter to my heart's content today because I'm lying in bed. The image of your Lachen has always been in my heart, and I say this to let you know that all the beautiful and lovely elements of my youth will always be precious to me. My motto has always been, never stop writing. If I sometimes put the god of art to sleep, it is only to make him more excited when he wakes up. I hope to leave a few more great works in the world, and then, like an old child, I will end my earthly journey among some good people. Among the honors I have received, because I know you will be happy to hear it, I tell you, there is a medal given to me by the late King of France, with the inscription, "The King presented it to Mr. Beethoven." In addition, there is a very polite letter attached. The letter was signed, "The Chief Attendant of the Wang family, Archduke Schodler." Dear friend, I will be satisfied with these few actions today. Memories of the past fill my heart. When I send this letter, I can't help but shed tears. This is just an introduction. You will receive another one soon. Letter. And the more letters you get, the happier I am. There is no need to doubt this when our friendship has reached this stage. Goodbye. Please hug your dear Lachen and children gently for me. Miss me. May God be with you. Always respect your loyal and true friend, Beethoven. Letter to predecessors. Vienna, February 17, 1827. My honest old friend, I was delighted to receive your second letter from Brüning. I am too weak to reply. But you know, everything you say to me is something I welcome and desire. As for my recovery, if I may say so, it was slow. Although the doctors did not say so, I guessed that a fourth operation would be necessary. I was patient and thought. Every disaster brings some good. There are so many more things I want to say to you today. But I am too weak, unable to do anything but embrace you and your Lachen in my heart. Your faithful old friend expresses his true friendship and affection for you and your family. Beethoven.